So my first match was against Kevin Streelman. We actually played a practice round together. Great dude. He beat me 2-1 after holing out twice from 75 yards and making two 40-footers. And he was apologizing the entire time. I'm like, dude, just you're making it worse. Just shut up. Just keep playing. Like I love you. You're great. Just don't apologize.
Today we are joined by Cory Kaufman. Cory is a golf instructor at the Golf Academy at Persimmon Ridge. Cory has been teaching golf for 20 plus years, and prior to that, played professionally and in college. In college, Cory played at Bellarmine and later went on to play professionally and had a few good years on the eGolf Tour. Cory has a strong group of students that range both from good junior players to PGA Tour players.
You got to build a swing based on what somebody has. And, let's be honest, the athletes can get away with a lot more than the non-athletes. So, you look at some players who are athletes, you kind of let them do some of the stuff that they do, in my opinion. I could be wrong, which is fine. You let them do it and if they can get away with it, they can get away with it. If they can't, they're under the gun, then that's when you have the conversation with them. Hey, look, we probably need to go this direction, but you got to let them try it and see what they do under the gun. Because playing, you're going to be an athlete. When you're playing a tournament, you're going to be an athlete. You're not going to be a robot. We're not robots, so you have to allow the athlete to be an athlete during a tournament. Now, hopefully the training has trained them, trained their athleticism in the proper way. But when they go play, I mean, you can't be out there thinking, you can't. I mean, you're done. As soon as you start thinking, you're done. So you just have to be athletic and hit the golf ball. That's my thought anyway.
No, I think you're right. I think that's a beautiful place to start. You're talking about how you got to be athletic. You got to go out there, play tournament golf. And you have a background in that you played junior golf over at St. X in Louisville. You played in college at Bellarmine, and then you went on to play pro. But starting a little bit before that, what got you into the game of golf?
My grandfather, neither one of my parents played. My dad played professional baseball at a low level, and well, I don't know if you can say anything. Any professional sport is at a low level, but he played baseball. My mom was which is kind of funny, was a softball pitcher, like slow pitch, and she was one of the top in the country. Now, how you can be a top slow pitch softball pitcher is beyond me, but she was, and they won like worlds or whatever when she was in high school and college and that type of stuff. I still don't understand it, but so that's what they did. And then my grandfather played golf. I mean, he did everything. We'd go hunting and that type of stuff. So I really liked the way this is weird, but I liked the way the metal cleats sounded on the concrete. And so I wanted a pair of those shoes. And so once I started wearing the shoes, my grandpa was like, well, you just can't wear the shoes. You look like an idiot. Let's at least wear it on the golf course. Cause I'm walking around my driveway when I'm like 6 years old with those shoes on, and they're the kind that has the floppy thing on the front. So they're not cool looking shoes. Right. So he's like, let's get to the golf course. I'm like, okay. So we do that. And I played baseball, basketball, golf, all the way through high school. And so I enjoyed I was an only child. And so I kind of enjoyed the individual part of it. I didn't like the slowness of it. I still hate the slowness of it. But I did enjoy the individual part. I did enjoy there's no one to blame but me. And I did like being outside, so I enjoyed that part. So that's kind of was it. And that was something him and I did together. And so that was a really cool for me, a bond with my grandfather that I got to enjoy, just strictly with him, and look forward to going over to Charlie Vettner um, every, every Saturday to play in the men's game and probably learn more about life than I would ever think about learning from the guys over at Charlie Vettner. So that's kind of what got me going.
That's beautiful. Did you always have aspirations to play in college and in pro, or when did that start? When did you start playing in more serious tournaments?
Yeah, I didn't take lessons till I was like 16. Basketball has always been my favorite sport. But 6'1" and white, that's not going to go too far. And I can't dribble. I've been 6 foot since the eighth grade. So I just, sat on the X down at the bottom and they throw me the ball and I would do something with it. And so in high school, when I got to St. X, freshman year, they're like, can we swing you out a little bit? And I'm like, yeah, I can shoot. I can do that. So I would do that. And then Sophomore year, they're like, you need to dribble. And I'm like, no, I don't dribble. I can come off a screen, can't guard anybody, but I can still come off a screen. So my goal was my 3-pointer was going to count one more than the person I was guarding. I just wouldn't let them shoot a three. And then after that, I'm like, I'm still up one. So we're cool. But yeah, that only went so far. Um, but what was the question again? I went on a tangent.
No, you're good. I was just saying, when did you start getting into more serious
Oh yeah,
tournaments?
sorry. So yeah, 16. I started working with Eddie Mudd. He was my swing instructor growing up, most of the for my junior and college career. So kind of that's when I really started. All right, I really enjoy this. Eddie was a phenomenal teacher. Loved being around him. Just a great mentor to me, and just a great ambassador for the game of golf. And so that's kind of when I enjoyed it. Like I said, still played basketball and baseball through high school, but always kind of knew college golf is what I wanted to do. I mean, I started kind of teaching golf when I was like 17, just learning from him. So I always knew kind of either want to play golf or I was going to teach. So which made college for me really difficult because I didn't really care to go to class, nor did I really. And so my first semester I had to that point 0.8 GPA after my first semester. I had to figure that out because coach was like, hey, you got to keep a 1.8, and I'm like, well, I didn't know that. So, but then I got 3.8 after that, and then I was fine. So it wasn't like I was dumb. I didn't want to do it because I knew if I didn't play, I was going to teach, and they're not teaching the golf swing in there. Although knowing what I know now, I wish I would have paid more attention in physics and geometry, and I wish I would have taken a few more business classes, but I graduated with communications because that was the easiest thing to do to get me out of school. So 6 years was enough at Bellarmine, and I think they just kind of gave me an honorary membership, as you say, to get me out. So then I just actually after that I kind of quit golf for a little bit. I was burnt out, and then just went into the golf business.
Very cool. And so you played over at St. X and you went on to play at Bellarmine, and you kind of undersell yourself as far as how good you were. You were a GCAA All-American in '99. I think you were all conference all 4 years,
Mhm.
and you won conference. Like you could hit the ball around. What led you to say, like, I want to go to Bellarmine, I want to play there? And did you think it was going to be an easy transition for you, besides actually having to go into class?
Yeah, that was not an easy transition. Um, so I could have gone to Florida Southern. I could have gone to U of L to play. And honestly, my aspirations right out of high school was to play professionally because I was that arrogant. I was like, I can go do it. I can go do it. And so my freshman year, I went there and played well at Bellarmine. Kind of figured out the balance between school and golf, and figured that out. And then I dropped out of school for a year, and started waiting tables and tried to play professionally. And then realized really quickly, I'll never forget this. I went down to the Irvin Cobb, which is a fun little tournament. But the pro am, I think I shot 69, and there were 6 61s, and I was like, maybe I should go back to school. And I'm looking at the golf course. And I'm like, I don't know how you shoot 61. Like, I don't get that. Like, I see 66 out there. I didn't see 61. So then I went back to school. Obviously didn't turn professional or anything. And then finished out, obviously finished at Bellarmine. But like I said, then finished out the balance. You got to learn the balance between your sport and school so you can kind of make both work. So yeah, that's what kind of led me there. I mean, they paid me to go there. I think I remember one conversation with a teacher my first year. She called me. It was freshman focus, and she's like, "You've not been to class in 2 weeks." And I said, "Well, until you pay me to go to class, they pay me to play golf. So I'll be on the golf course if you need me." And stupid thing to say to a teacher, but I did. Uh, so
Teachers
so
never
yeah.
appreciate that.
No, not at Bellarmine, especially because that's a good school. So yeah. But we actually became pretty good friends after that. Once I spoke to her about kind of how I met, and then she was a great mentor to me as well, and she kind of explained life and here's how you have to do it. And I was like, okay, cool, that makes sense.
That's cool. And while you were at Bellarmine, obviously we talked about like how well you played there, and you were a solid player while there, despite the realization at the Irvin Cobb that maybe you weren't where you needed to be to play at the highest level. You played solid there. What did you learn in your time under that coaching? And is it something that you carry with you today at all?
A little bit. I mean, I think I definitely learned more, because I mean, to be honest, like arrogance was a big part of it. I thought I was too good to go to college anyway, which wasn't the case. The thing I always worked with Eddie was ball striking. So I mean, I was a really good iron player. I was average at best putter, probably below ass, below average chipper, and Freudian slip, and okay driver of the ball, and not a very good wedge player. So I learned about all that once I got out of college. College, I could still, being D2. I'm not trying to downplay D2, but there is a big difference between D2 and D1. If I would have gone to U of L, I would have learned quicker that my game is not good enough at that level, and which obviously if it's not good enough at that level, it's not going to be good at the next level after that. But where I was, we were GLVC, played a lot north. There's some good players, but I kind of would ball strike my way around it. I would if I played well, I'd shoot 69. If I didn't play well, I'd shoot 73. So, I mean, that's kind of where I lived. And these weren't hard golf courses either. Now that I look back, like if you were trying to play at the next level, you got to be popping some mid 60s at these golf courses, even low 60s every once in a while. So, like I said, now that I look back, my scoring game wasn't good enough.
Yeah, I think I looked and saw there's Southern Indiana had a tournament in 2001. You shot 67 at, I think, or maybe it was 69, and it was like T3, T4, which is solid, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot to win in college, and it takes a lot to win anywhere, as you know well. So you finish up college, and your aspiration has been to go pro. You didn't even want to go to college, but you went there. Then you went pro, and you played on, I know, the E Tour. What was it like when you first went pro? You said that, not to point out what you said, but you said, like, arrogance was a big thing that you had at first. And I imagine coming out of college, it might have been a little humbling, because I think I've talked with other people like Will Holcomb, who, going through talk with him, he's like, oh yeah, like when I went to college, I was just like, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to kick everyone's butt and I'm going to be the top player. And then going pro, he doesn't have that same mentality anymore, because he knows how hard it is. What was it like for you going pro? What did you think it was going to be like, and what was it?
Well, so right out of college, I actually quit golf for probably about 3 years. Got in the golf business. I was over at Polo Fields working there. And then, like I said, I always knew I wanted to teach. So was over at Polo Fields working there, then got a job over at LCC, Louisville Country Club, as an assistant there, still teaching, a decent amount of both. And then I got a really good opportunity to move down to Hilton Head when I was like 25 or 26, and become an assistant instructor at Belfair under Krista Dunton. And so, like I said, at that point, I just wanted to teach. That's all I wanted to do. I was kind of done with golf, burnt out. Still enjoyed being around it, still enjoyed playing for fun, but not at a professional level. My main goals when I went down to Hilton Head was to become a better teacher, get a little bit better, get a lot better physically, just as far as in shape and that type of stuff. And then also from a spiritual perspective, those are my three goals as I moved down there. And so once I got down there and really started working on the spiritual aspect, and then also the physical aspect, it's funny how the arrogance just goes away. Your view on life, and your humbleness and your appreciation goes up. And so I was just happy to be there. I was happy to be in a place where the weather was fantastic. I was happy to be teaching. I started to kind of play a little bit more. I started to practice short game. Spent a lot of time with Tim Cook, who's down in Hilton Head, and Mike Shannon, who was down at Sea Island at the time, and then Andrew Rice, who was at Berkeley, which was right next door to me. And I started to realize, like, man, short game's fun. Like I enjoy it. So I started practicing a lot, putting and my ball striking. I mean, I can still hit the ball fine today, even though I don't play anymore. But ball striking's always kind of been a thing that I was good at. And so I started playing in section events down there, and out of nowhere, I'm shooting 64 or 62, and I'm like, man, this game really isn't that hard. But the difference was I'd hit it in the water and I would be, okay, I'll just drop, and then hit it to 15 feet and make it. Whereas in college, like, I might break my club, I might break your club, I'm probably going to break your club, and I might break somebody's neck because I was just so angry. And then started winning some section events, and then the e-golf tour came around Hilton Head a couple times and finished second and third in a couple of those. And I'm like, shoot, I'm not even playing full time. And then I had a couple of members. I don't know if y'all ever heard of the Ultimate Game out in Vegas. It's you put up 50,000, and for a player, it's pretty cool. You put up 50,000 for a player, and you do match play, and if every match you win 50 grand. And then it puts you into, if you're left of the final 10, it puts you into stroke play event, and if you win the stroke play event, you win 3 million. So I had a group of guys, and I just wanted to go play on the Hooters tour. Like that's all I wanted. Like, I just give me the 50 grand and let me go play. Give me a full year. Like I'm still teaching, and they're like, no, 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 this is a great bet. We're all going to spend 50 grand. We go to Vegas anyway. The odds are better, and I'm like, fine, but this is okay. I'll do it. So my first match was against Kevin Streelman. We actually played a practice round together. Great dude. He beat me 2-1 after holing out twice from 75 yards and making two 40-footers. And he was apologizing the entire time. I'm like, dude, you're making it worse. Just shut up. Just keep playing. Like I love you. You're great. Just don't apologize. Like, so I lost that match. And then I think I played, might have been Tony Finau, the second match when he was 16, and I lost that match. And he was good. And so then came back home, and a couple other members got together and wanted me to go play full time. And so then I did that and played really well my first and second year out. Played tons with McGirt, Scott Brown, Kevin Kisner. Him and I played a lot together. It was fun. Like I beat those guys just as much as they beat me. I mean, they're good players, great people too. And it's kind of fun seeing them now when I go out and see them out on the road some and get to talk to them a decent amount. So that's kind of cool, and it's really nice to see those guys have made it. But so that was kind of my transition, from college into playing professionally. It was a little bit of a long road. I didn't start playing full time until I was like 28, 29, and then that's where I met Chris Baker, and he stayed with me. We did a lot of traveling together. So by the time I got to 30, 31, I was tired of traveling. I just wanted to be home. My buddy John Perna, he owns an academy up in Chicago. It's called the Players Service, and he pumps out an obscene amount of good players. And so we had this concept of group practice and that type of stuff. And he stopped playing about 2 years before me and started his process. And then once I got done, we both kind of did what we said we were going to do. We are going to start this kind of different concept of teaching. So I was kind of excited to start that path, and I kind of got back to my old self after a couple of years of playing, of arrogance, and I was working hard and expectations got really too high, and just way too angry. And so now when I see players going down the road, I'm like, dude, your perspectives have to change. I mean, you're going to quit, or you're going to end up an alcoholic or a drug addict. I mean, there's only three roads this is going to go, so that's some insight I feel like I can really help players with, is because I've seen that. I've lived it. Not the drug part. I don't do that stuff, but the alcohol part was a big deal. I've lived that. That to me, that's just not the way to go. And it's a tough, personally, on people emotionally, when you're beating yourself up like that. That's a hard road to go. But that's where I feel like I can help with some players if I see them going down that road or that type of stuff. But that's what kind of all that stuff led me to want to teach again and to help players, just like Eddie helped me when I was a kid, to help players and juniors try to be the best they can be at golf, but more importantly, feel good about themselves, and feel like they're accomplishing their goals and doing what they need to do.
That's really interesting that you share that perspective, because I briefly experienced seeing people, just miserable down in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
playing mini tour professional golf events. And not exactly the reason that we started this, but when I moved back, Daniel and I, the reason we started this was because we saw the mistakes we made as juniors, and we want to help. If we can help one through this whole process, then it's
Oh
worth
my
it.
gosh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, golf is a game of losing. I mean, you lose all the time. I mean, there's only one winner. And so a top five is great. Good job. What I'm saying? A top three is great. Good job. So it's very easy to go down a road that's not the healthiest. And so it's just kind of keeping the perspective, enjoying the process. That's a big deal of it. A big part of it, obviously, is the process. If you don't enjoy golf, you don't enjoy the process, you'll quit, or you should quit. I mean, I remember the last tournament I ever played in. I went back to the Urban Cobb and shot 60 the first round, was leading, and Teeter shot 62, I think. And so we were paired together, and him and I are good friends. And so I was having a miserable day, and I was a miserable person and probably horrible to be around. But Teeter is like the salt of the earth, so he withstood me for the 18 holes. And we were sitting there on the card on 18. He was going to win. I think I was like one over or something, and he was probably 50,000 under, like he always is. And so I'm like, dude, is there anything else? Like, you've been through the gamut. You've lost sponsors, gained sponsors. You've been on tour, off tour, all this stuff. Like, please tell me there's something else you'd rather be doing. And he's like, no. I'm like, so I'm like, shut up, dude. Come on. He's like, no, there's nothing else. I said, well, this is my last tournament, because other than hanging out with you, I can think of 50,000 things I'd rather be doing right now. I hate this. This is miserable. And so I think I'd already signed up for Kentucky Open at Old Stone, and I played that, and then I quit. But it was cool, he was it's funny because I saw him yesterday. And I was like, he laughs because I'm like, you're the reason why I quit golf. You know that, right? Like you are the reason. and so I mean, just that conversation with him, kind of like how you explained, Cooper. Like I just didn't like it enough. I didn't enjoy it enough. I didn't enjoy the process enough. So and even teaching, like there are times that I don't enjoy it. But like anything, there's always going to be things that you don't enjoy. But it's just keeping that perspective of what you're trying to do and what your goals are. As soon as you lose perspective, that's when burnout happens and the enjoyment gets sucked out. So it's even in a playing perspective and a teaching perspective. To me, it's all the same.
Yeah, and what you said about alcohol, drugs, etc. Like it, it actually to me both those things kind of mirror golf in that when you play golf, you get these real high highs because no matter what level you are, you hit some good shot that is like what the best players hit or like feels like that, and
Hmm.
you're like, oh man, like this is a taste of
I got
glory.
it. I
And
got
then
it.
the rest of the round
Yeah.
is not that. And every round like that, every round is going to be like that to a degree. And if you're going to stick with this game, you to a degree have to have, I wouldn't say an addictive personality, but there has to be something probably like a little bit not right
Yeah.
with you. And the
Yes.
guy
You got to
and
be a
the
little
guys
crazy.
and the guys that make
A
it the
little Rain
farthest,
Man.
yeah, the guys that make it the farthest have even a little more not right with them than
Yes.
just the normal
Yes.
not right guys. And like
Yes.
I've seen it with like me and Cooper, like when it gambling, like all sorts of things. We aren't addicted to it, but like I've seen Cooper have like a terrible night playing poker and have the worst cards, and then the only thing he wants to do is find another $100 somewhere and go to the
Yes.
table. And
Yes.
I'm the same way with about any game. I'm down, I
Yeah.
lose. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go back and absolutely
Yeah, yeah,
kill.
that's funny. Well, I think and even to go on what you're talking about, the highs and the highs. For me personally, I didn't have the highs even when I played well. It was like, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. I've been the last 2 years. I've been getting up and I've been getting to the gym at 5:30 in the morning, and I work out for 2 hours, and then I practice till dark. My goal was the first one at the course, the last one to leave. I'll never forget a mini tour event towards the end. I shot what I shoot 69. I think I played with Luke List. Shot 69, and I think I was in fifth, and I felt like I should have shot better. So I made myself run to the gym because I was like, "You're going to throw up, like you're throwing up today." So I made myself run 5.5 miles to the gym and did lower body to punish myself for my 60. I mean, think about how crazy this is. And I shot 69. I was in fifth. It's not like I lost the tournament. It was day one. And so like I didn't even enjoy the parts that you're supposed to enjoy. And so because that you're just supposed to, you work hard. You're supposed to do that. Like that's expected, but it's unexpected to play bad. I mean, think how like idiotic, and it's no wonder it took me 6 years to get through Bellarmine. But like that was my thought process. And so I see kids now, and I'm like, look, if you're going to not enjoy, or if you're going to be mad at the bad shots, you have to be happy about the good shots. Like you have to have both. You can't have one, or just don't enjoy either. At least keep it somewhere in the middle, and actually a conversation with a player I had yesterday, he thinned one and it lipped out and he was mad. And then he hit the next one pure over the green. I'm like, well, you can't be mad at both. Like you almost lipped out on one and you flew the green on the second. So what are you basing your enjoyment on right now? Like what's a good shot to you? Like, cause right now it's really confusing. It's hard to tell. And so it's just that's where I was living. I didn't even enjoy the successes, and I'll struggle with that now with my teaching. Sometimes I don't even enjoy the successes. I'm only looking at the negative. But I think that's something that keeps people sharp. I'm trying to pump myself up here, but I think that's something that keeps people like trying to achieve the best. But I don't think it's always the healthiest. It's not sustainable. That's the best way to say it. It's not sustainable.
Definitely. And when it comes to those types of shots, like you talk about your student, I think that's something now that I'm not playing anymore, like super competitively. I'm starting to try to play again competitively because, as I said, took a
Hmm.
while off of playing. And now, like, I go out and play and I'll shoot a not good score. There's the other day I played with, I texted Cooper. I was like, man, I shot 84 today, but I grinded out every single shot. That was the
Hmm.
best 84 you've never seen a guy
Oh yeah,
drop from a hazard, get up and down for bogey as many times as I did
yeah.
today. That was my job. And I think that's
That's
something
funny.
that when you get now that we're farther along as far as data goes, et cetera, you get the data from Fawcett, you get the data
Hmm.
from like guys like John Sherman, I think are doing a great job because you talk about
Hmm.
what junior golfers deal with, and they probably don't have as much exposure to John Sherman. But what you
Hmm.
talk about expectations, like those types of things are happening not just to juniors but to regular golfers.
Hmm.
And the thing is, you watch a PGA Tour broadcast, all you're seeing is shot after shot after shot. It's like going to Instagram and seeing like the hottest women
Oh yeah.
over and over and over.
Yeah.
It's not good for you. It's not good for your
No.
brain, and it
No.
distorts reality. And
Yeah.
we had a TikTok go viral about how Tiger played a little more conservatively and how he aimed more towards the center of the green. And the comments were just filled with people saying, "No, like he aimed at every pin. Look, he hit it. Look how many shots he hit right next to the
Yeah.
pin. He was
It's
aiming
like,
there."
look at his
Yeah.
birdie percentage. It was super up there, so he had to be aiming at the pin.
Yeah. No. No,
And
he's just
it's
some great misses.
yes, exactly. And so I think that's one of those things that has we've come along and hopefully are able to instill in more. Is that something that you talked about, like gauging success as far as a shot goes when it comes
Hmm.
not just to a shot, but like to a tournament? You said like a T3 is good, a T5 is good. How do
Hmm.
you instill what success is to your juniors?
Well, I think, I think you have to go through the process. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, how was your process? We'll do some mental scorecards with them. Like, 5, I was, wasn't focused or I was mad. A 1, I did great. And so, if you can score an 18 for the round, good job. Like, I don't care what you shoot. You know what I'm saying? In keeping that process of it. Also, I think the combines are great because it gives them a little bit better perspective. Like from 120, when they hit it to 20 feet, that's a score of about an 80, 81, which for high school players, not bad on a TrackMan combine. You know what I'm saying? But to them, I mean, half the time they're throwing their club. And it's like, what about the chip that you hit to 20 feet? You didn't get mad at that. Like, but you're mad about a 20 footer from 130 or whatever. Like you're totally jacked up right now. And so, just the combine stuff, like I said, I think is a really good help for them to help them kind of give some perspective of what's really good and what's not. And the combine is, where the ball lands. It didn't tell you how it got there. So, if you kind of thin it a little bit, fine. If you, chunk a little bit, fine. Obviously we're trying to get their skill level to where a little thin and a little chunk, if they know their distances and they're able to control their swing speed appropriately, that's only the difference of, 6, well, probably 10 to 15 feet as opposed to 30 yards and 20 yards. So we talk about the skill development or their skill level at that point. But, those are the couple things that, we kind of hammer. I tell them all the time, I don't care about their score. I don't care if you shoot 85. I truly don't. But one, if you act like a jackass, that's a problem. Two, if you get out of your routine and you don't go through your process, then that's a problem because what you can't shoot when you do that is 62. And if you want to play Division 1, you have to be able to shoot 62. You can't shoot 62 with a bad short game, nor can you keep from shooting 85 with a bad short game. So those two things, you have to have your short game good, and you have to have your process. I hear Scott Fawcett about hitting greens. I'm all for it, but if you're losing 4 or 5 shots and around the green, then you can hit as many greens as you want. You're going to 3 putt. It's not going to make a difference. But at the level where these high school kids are, I still think short game is such a big deal. In the background, we're trying to hit more greens for sure. That's a focus. But when I go out on tour, I don't see a bad chipper. I mean, what I'm saying? I mean, it's all relative, but there's no bad chippers. I mean, they're lipping out 1 out of 10 from 50 yards. So I mean, if you're missing the green from 50, that's a pretty good place to start. But like I said, just the process of it, that type of stuff, the combines, just to gain their perspective and just help them learn what is good and what's bad, as far as shots, and then you just move on.
And you said when you started your academy, you had a friend of yours that has the player service up in
Hmm.
Chicago, and you guys kind of had a new philosophy that you wanted to implement, and both of you have turned out a ton of good players. What sort of is that philosophy around playing, around teaching, and around practice?
I think golf is too much individual lessons, in my personal opinion. I mean, if you're trying to go play in college, you have to be comfortable in an environment where you've got one coach and 10 kids. And if you can't function in that environment, you're not gonna play. I mean, one thing that I'm really proud of in our academy. I mean, I'm proud of my players, but the other thing I'm really proud of is we've not had a player that has gone through our academy and hasn't gotten the top 5 as a freshman. You know what I'm saying? And one, we need to get some players to better schools, but two, that's a big deal to me. And that to me, that goes and shows that they're able to. I mean, colleges, I mean, as you guys know, more recent than me, but college is a lot of adjustment. You got a new place, a new coach, a new team, a new school, a new roommate that you've never met. You might be in a new town that you've never been in. And oh, by the way, you're 18, 19 years old, and God knows what's going through your brain already anyway, with all that stuff. And so if you can take away some elements that they can already get comfortable with the environment, being in like a college environment, and having group around them, and having players that are better and having players that are a little worse, teaching them how to help the players that need help, and how to kind of be leaders and that type of stuff. I think they can transfer that really quickly into college. And so that's a little different philosophy. I mean, there's guys around here that have, it's funny, like, I've seen some, teachers try to do what we do, what I'm saying? And then they kind of like, oh, that's not very good. So then they go back to individuals, and then later they'll be doing group and, back and forth and that type of stuff. But I think that's something that we've done a really good job on, myself and Josh Schneider and Garrett Nielsen, my other two teachers, is getting these kids to really thrive in that environment. They don't need a coach all the time. I mean, I don't want to see them I'd love to see them when they come back from college, but I don't want to see them to help them. I want to see them to hang out. They need to be able to figure this stuff out on their own. What I'm saying? They need to be self-sufficient. They need to understand the ball flight laws. They need to understand what TrackMan numbers are. They need to be able to do all that, and they need to understand how that all applies to them, so they can thrive in that environment on their own, because that's where they're going to be on their own.
Kind of relating to that, figuring things out on your own. Do you encourage your players to take swing videos? And a side note on that, as a junior, I was discouraged from taking swing videos,
Mm-hmm.
especially, right before competition. But last summer, I took a lot less lessons, and I took a swing video every day I practiced, and then every warm up before a tournament. And because I was able to analyze those the right way, it really, really helped me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think it depends on the personality of the player. I mean, you have players like me that just really enjoy looking at golf swings. What I'm saying? That's the way I grew up. I loved it. And then you have the ones that are, kind of, when I say this, I'm not, that are a little more athletic. They're not as technical, they're more athletes. So they're going to be the ones that depend a little bit more on the ball flight laws. So just depending on the player, yeah. We do a lot of sports box AI. And so, a lot of 3D, that type of stuff. So if they want to send me some 3D stuff, I mean, I love that stuff. I mean, I'm all for it. It just kind of depends on the player, and what helps them. And like you say, Cooper, I mean, is, like even with Jared, that's out on tour. Like he's got checkpoints. What I'm saying? The club's got to be here, close to here at the top, and halfway down it's got to be close to here. And he does swing videos. I'll send them to me. He's like, well, it's looking pretty good. And so that's the easiest way we've been able to kind of help him, is just kind of go through those checkpoints. And so if you're educated on your swing like you were, Cooper, then yeah, by all means. I try to, the main thing with these kids is try to get them to understand the ball flight laws. Put a stick out in front of them, hit different shots, because when you get to the golf course, you're going to be different that day, whether you're a little stiffer, you're a little more loose, a little less loose, a little sore, all that stuff. So you got to figure out what shot through ball position and body aligns that are going to produce what you want for that day. So that's kind of how we go through with it.
So for people that are listening who might not know what you're talking about, could you briefly explain the ball flight laws and what those are?
Yeah. So, just understanding what produces the ball to curve left or right, and just understanding what produces the ball to curve right to left. And so, obviously, a left, and for right-handers, for a left to right shot, obviously that's the path moving left with the face slightly open. So we have our players just hit those different shots. You're going to typically find a shot that you hit, one of those is easier than the other, whether it's a cut or a draw. And so that's typically your go-to shot. I have an easier time hitting a cut than a draw, so cut's always kind of my go-to. That's what I try to play around the golf course. So, there's different philosophies between ball strikers and shot makers. It depends on their personalities. I mean, we have some shot makers, but a lot of our players are ball strikers, and we try to have them play, just one single shot for that round. I mean, obviously, if they're behind a tree, they need to know how to do that, but, to keep things very simple, and that type of stuff. So from a position perspective, usually the more you move it up, it moves the path to the left. In theory, the more back, the more it moves it right. So we try to teach them how to kind of find that sweet spot where the path is where they need it to be based on their ball position. And also you can use body lines. So we try to go ball position with a little bit of body lines to try to help produce the path that they want. And then you can orientate the club face however you want it to address. I think too many people are like, well, the club face has to be square to dress. It doesn't have to be. It can be shot. It can be open. It can be whatever you want it to be to help produce the shot that you need. So then we orientate the club face, and then they hit the shot, and then like, there you go. All right, you're playing with the club face a couple degrees open today, to hit the cut, and that's your desired ball flight, and that's what you need. That's what you're doing. Now tomorrow, maybe different, but it usually doesn't vary too much. Did I help or did I confuse?
No, that's really good. That's a good explanation. It brought something to mind that I've heard. It might have been Joey Mayo that said it. He's like, most people think that using TrackMan is making it more technical, but in reality, it actually simplifies things. It makes you be able to focus on the feel, like just okay. I look at the TrackMan. Okay, just swing more to the right rather than trying
Yeah.
to figure it out just by looking at it. Then it gets way too complicated.
Yes, yes. I think it can do both, depending on, how it's being used, 100%.
And I think what you touched on is one of those important things for juniors, and that is a lot of juniors may or may not have the tools when they go to the course to be able to fix themselves. And I think that's something really cool about what you said is like the whole point of playing a tournament is like to get the ball in the hole in the least amount of strokes. And like you're not playing golf swing on the course. You're playing golf on the course. And so when you get to the range that morning, you're a little stiff, a little too loose, a little something, and like the ball isn't flying exactly the way that you're used to seeing it. Hopefully you have the tools to at least manage that. What sort of tools and understanding do you give your students to manage that? You said some you're going to get more technical, some you're going to get less technical, but how do you make sure that they take ownership of that and understand?
Well, I think them having the ability to make the change on the spot. Golf is, the person who adjusts the fastest is typically the one that wins, because we all have a great plan until we get in the ring and get punched in the mouth. So whatever you have going out there, something's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And having the understanding that golf's not a game of perfect. It's a very imperfect game. So you have to make adjustments on the fly. And so if they understand the ball position and the face orientation, the body line stuff, they can make those adjustments pretty quick. And all that stuff's done at the beginning. It's not done during the swing. And so that's why I think that's a great way to play golf, is because you're very focused on your setup and how everything is. But then once it's time to hit, you go because your setup's done. Then you can focus in, kind of on the shot. So it's not a during swing thought, if that makes sense. It's all setup stuff. So we try to keep everything as simple as far as setup stuff that way. Now sometimes you have to go some extremes, like you may have to add, a little more body line stuff other than just ball position. But usually with ball position and a little bit of lines, they can figure some stuff out. So our job is to arm them with that knowledge and how the application works, warming up. And so when these guys come here, there's some processes that we do. We have them find their baseline putting. That's the one thing to do, and then we have them go out and all right, find the desired shot you want, and then we help them through that process at practice. And so they practice that, so then they can apply that on the range.
What do you mean by baseline putting?
I work a lot with Preston Combs on his putting philosophies, which I think is really good. Not that there's not a lot of good ones out there, but basically just like a wedge shot, just like a 9 o'clock wedge shot. It's 9 o'clock, 58. Say goes 55 yards. He believes that you should have baseline putting strokes too. So like you basically take three tees. The far tees are about a foot away from the middle. Putter starts at the middle. You find the right tempo, and then for that day, depending on the speed of the greens, say it travels 10 feet. So like that's your baseline stroke for that day. So you always work your baselines, and then you can work distances off your baselines, just like a 9 o'clock shot. Like if I know my 9 o'clock wedge goes 55 yards, I know how to hit a 60-yard shot. I know how to hit a 45-yard shot based off my baseline. So then you just work off the baseline for distance control. So we always work on baselines and them keeping their baseline. So our green stays about the same speed, which is like a 5. I'm kidding. It's like an 8. So typically when they come, their baselines are anywhere from 9 to 12 feet. So they know their baseline. They're supposed to find it as soon as they show up. And so it should be the same for our greens every single time. And then they'll know, all right, when the green's at 10, my baseline goes a foot and a half further. So then everything's running a foot and a half further today. And so that way they know, because in my opinion, speed is probably the most important thing in putting. So we hammer baseline stuff. So they'll go from baseline finding to finding shots on the range where their shot is that day. And then we hammer their baselines for wedges, meaning like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So we do 9s, 10s, 3/4, work on those. And then we go and whether they need some technical work for that day, individually, we'll do that, or we go and take them out on the course or short game work, depending on what their stats are telling us.
That's a unique way to do it as far as getting those baselines and being able to
Mhm.
work off that. Especially, I can imagine going to tournaments, that's useful. Because the unique thing about going to a tournament is every tournament you go to, you've maybe you get one practice round out there, but
Mhm.
you don't know it
Yeah.
as well as like your home course. When your students go play practice rounds, what do you advise them on as far as like, hey, here's how to approach this course. Here's what to be looking for when you're out there, and when it comes to like greens, how how do you practice on greens? Because I know a lot of students, like, they'll go out there, like they'll play for a score in their practice round.
Oh,
They'll like putt to a hole,
drive me
putt to the hole, and be
crazy.
like, oh, I got to work out
Like,
get it
why do
on
you
this
think they
hole.
put that hole there? Why do you think they put it there? Because it's never going to be used the rest. I mean, it drives me freaking crazy. And they're like, "Oh, I shot 64 in my practice round. Great job. That's why you shot 85." Because what happened is you got to hole number 3 and you were 1 over versus 2 under like you were the other day. Then you freaked out and then you look like an idiot and you shot 85. Great practice round though. Good job. So like the big thing is for them to go out, get the speed of the greens, understand what their releases are. So are the greens a little firm? Are they soft? Are they spinning back? What are your releases with your wedges? And pace that off. All right. So like today, my 55-yard shot releases out 3 yards, whereas last week it sucked back 4, that type of stuff. And then just chipping around the greens, finding out what type of rough it is, what kind of runouts going on. Can you get spin out of the rough with your chips? Can you not? Do you have to go more trajectory to stop the ball, or can you go more spin? That type of stuff. And then really the ball striking stuff. I mean, all that is picking targets, hitting lines. So I mean, that to me, you should be able to play every golf course as long as you know where your lines are. So off the tee, they're trying to get their lines. On the greens, they're trying to get the speed. Also around the greens, trying to get their whether they need spin or trajectory as far as for chipping, stopping the ball. That's kind of it.
It's a nice toolbox to have, especially like it maybe at first as a student it seems like a lot, but as soon as you have it right there, like it's not rocket science in the sense that you're just trying to figure out what things are going to be like and how you need to adjust around. And I can tell you that's something that I didn't do well as a junior, and that's something that I doubt Cooper did well as a junior too, because it's not
I
for
didn't
when you
either.
go. Yeah. And that's what's nice about your experiences. You can bring that to the table, and you can do
Hmm.
that with not just like junior golfers, but also with your high level players. You mentioned that you work with Jared Wolf.
Hmm.
He played on the PGA Tour last year. He's in Corn Ferry finals right now.
Hmm.
What has that been like as far as working with juniors, also working with different players on different tours? We know a bunch of your players who are
Hmm.
at all different levels. What's that been like for you? And have you learned anything from them?
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, these guys, they're the ones out there doing it. So, I mean, I'm constantly picking their brains. What are you learning? You know what I'm saying? What are you figuring out? What's the difference between, the Canadian tour and, Steve Stallings going over to the DP tour? Like, what's that like? You know what I'm saying? So I can tell my guys what that's like. So and we're fortunate that a lot of our players, are really, really nice guys. So they'll zoom in or FaceTime with our juniors and talk to them, or if they're around, they'll sit and talk to them. And I think what's cool about it, and something that we're lucky to have here is a junior can come and see, like, oh, there's somebody who came through this and this is where they are now. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of adds a little bit of validity to what we do. Not saying that it's going to work out for them or anything, but it does show that, I think, a little bit. And so just to have them around for the experience, because I mean, it gets to the point where I'm no different than their parents. I mean, they get tired of listening to me. So anybody who can say something the same way that we do, but or say the same thing but in a different way, that's a different voice, it's good for them. Because I mean, I tell them all the time about practice rounds. Do they still play a game and try to shoot a score? Yes, they do. Then will they go and shoot a bad score after shooting a really good score? Not all the time, but most of the time they do. So it's just having that different voice that they can see and ask questions, and to be able to see what that level's like. And a guy like Jared, I mean, he wasn't that good. I mean, he'll tell you that. I'm not saying anything that he didn't already. I mean, he wasn't a good junior player. He was an average college player at best. I mean, him and Josh Teeter are kind of the same. I mean, they just grinded it out, and at no way are they. I mean, Teeter's in a better place, but no way are they safe, from keeping their card. So they're still grinding, at 34. Jared is, and Teeter's my age, so they get to see that, and also see that that it's not a lot of fun, kind of like what we talked about, which is a good perspective of it too. It just shows them that this isn't all puppy dogs and ice cream. Like it's not it's hard. That's a good thing, and I think the thing I can help them is just stuff we talked about earlier about, the perspective, of it. Like, it's just, you got to keep that, which is hard, easier said than done.
And your students that come out, as we said, you got a lot of students that have played in a lot of good places. The ones that come out and exceed expectations, is there anything different from them than the ones that come out and maybe you had high expectations for them? And like, I mean, distractions happen in college. So aside from like getting distracted with girls and partying and all that stuff, like, is there something that you see that separates them, like hindsight being 2020 for a lot of them?
I think the ones who can get there the quickest and adjust, what I'm saying, and get comfortable in that environment, those are the ones that do the best. But I'm a big believer in, your journey is your journey. I'm saying, like I said earlier, what you eat doesn't make me fat. Like, we're all different. We're all built different. God has a plan for all of us. And, you have to have faith in your plan, and you have to have faith in what you do and your ability. And whatever happens, happens. I'm saying, I mean, you could have the best plan, you could have the most ability, you could have all that stuff, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. And so, you have to be able to run a race without knowing where the finish line is. And if you're not willing to run the race and sprint and not knowing where the finish line is, then you probably should just stop. Because it's hard, because there's 1,000 guys out there who are willing to do that, regardless of their ability level. And they've got financial backing, and they've got talent, they've got all this stuff that you may not have. The ones who can kind of just put their head down and kind of stick to what they do and just let themselves get better as opposed to make themselves get better, those are the ones that seem to have the longevity, and the ones who seem to succeed at that level. Maybe it takes a year, maybe it takes 2, maybe it takes 4, maybe it takes 5 now with COVID year. But they're able to get there usually.
What you said about getting there at the end of the day and adjusting, like, I think that's something that everyone struggles with when you get to college. And
Oh, it's brutal.
at least I know for me, like, I never adjusted because I stopped playing. And I think that's one of those things. Now looking back, I'm grateful for it. It worked out well, and I have a heck of a lot more fun playing golf now. And if I could go back to my junior self, there's a few things I'd tell myself, especially about just enjoying it and
Oh yeah.
being there. And the final question we ask all of our guests is that question, which is, if you go back to yourself as a junior golfer and tell yourself just one thing, what would that one thing be?
Oh, let's see. Just one. Probably just enjoy it. What I'm saying? I mean, just enjoy the process, just enjoy the game, just enjoy the complexity of it. Stop being so perfect. That's two. Sorry. Enjoy not being perfect. There we go. I'll put it in one thing. That would probably be the biggest thing. Because I mean, that's why a lot of people quit. They don't enjoy it. And when you enjoy something and you stop enjoying it, then that means you've changed some sort of perspective about what you were doing. So it's about keeping the perspective of what made you like it and love it to begin with, and keeping that perspective. Now, I do understand things can, grow old and people change, and your goals and stuff can change, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But trying to really hold on to the perspective of, kind of what's your why? Why are you doing this? Keeping that there, so that way because you're going to get beat up, you're going to get hit, you're going to get knocked down, you're going to get killed. So what can keep you going, and what can keep you, moving forward? And usually at the beginning you have that, and then as you go and you get your ass kicked and you get pumped and you get kicked to the ground, you lose that perspective, because you're like, what's going on? What's wrong? There's nothing wrong. It's just, you're going through the process. You're going through the journey. Just enjoy that. That's all part of it.
That's beautiful. We appreciate you taking the
God,
time.
tell my wife that I said something beautiful. She would enjoy that. Please.
We will.
Thanks.
You'll have it recorded in eternity.
Sweet.
For your
Nice.
reference.
That means it's up in the air on the cloud.
Where can people find you on social media if they want to get in contact with you, work with you, any of those things? Where can they find you?
Our website, thegolfacademypr.com, Instagram, the Golf Academy PR, Twitter, the Golf Academy PR, any of those places. I don't have any personal. I would just drink too much bourbon and make an ass of myself. So my wife cut me off from social media. So on those platforms, you can DM us, or my email and phone numbers on the website.
Thanks for joining us today. Please do us a big favor and like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, so we can help others learn how to play better tournament golf. You can find us online at thetournamentcode.com, on Instagram at thetournamentcode, and on Twitter at tournamentcode. As always, Feel free to reach out to us at those places or email us at daniel@thetournamentcode.com and cooper@thetournamentcode.com. We hope you join us as we continue to dive deeper into what it takes to play elite tournament golf.